Everyone expected the trial to drag on with silence and uncertainty, until a little girl made one tiny gesture that set everything in motion. What followed wasn't just courtroom drama, it was the unraveling of a secret only a dog could see. The courtroom air was thick, not with noise, but with the kind of stillness that made every footstep echo like thunder. When 5-year-old Lily Thompson entered the grand room, the shift was immediate. Her tiny fingers clutched the leash of a large German shepherd, his posture straight, his eyes alert, and a jagged scar cutting across his flank like a battle wound. His name was Titan, and to her he was more than just a dog. He was everything. Every gaze followed Lily as she walked forward, hesitant but unwavering. Judge Harold Givens, a veteran on the bench with silver hair and a stone-hard gaze, leaned forward. He had presided over hundreds of cases, but something about this one, the silence, the tension, the stakes, was different. Lily was the only witness to an attempted abduction that had gripped the community in fear. If her testimony held, the accused, a man named Simon Drexler, would likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. But there was a catch. Lily hadn't spoken a single word since the attack. Across the room, Simon sat at the defense table, calm, clean-cut, and strangely smug. A 44-year-old app developer with a reputation for being invisible in crowds, Simon had been arrested based on a neighbor's tip, but there was no physical evidence, no DNA, no confession, and most importantly, no testimony. His lawyer, Peter Lang, had crafted a bulletproof defense. Paint Lily as a traumatized child whose memory couldn't be trusted. Without a word from her, the case was built on sand. Lily climbed into the witness chair, her hands trembling just enough to notice. She didn't look at the crowd. She didn't look at the lawyers. But when her eyes locked with Simon's, a subtle flick of her fingers occurred. A signal she had practiced for weeks in silence. To most, it was meaningless. But not to two souls in the room, Titan and Judge Givens. Titan's reaction was instant. His ears pricked forward, his muscles coiled, and a deep growl rose from his chest. It wasn't the growl of a dog feeling threatened, it was the growl of recognition. His eyes zeroed in on Simon and didn't flinch. The room stirred with uneasy whispers. This wasn't a random bark or nervous tension. This was something primal, a signal received, a threat identified. Judge Gibbons slammed the gavel down hard. The sound cracked across the silence like lightning. Court will recess for 15 minutes, he announced, his voice tighter than usual. Prosecutor Danielle Reeves shot him a confused look, but he didn't meet her eyes. His focus remained on the girl and the dog. Something had just shifted, and he needed time to understand what and why. Outside, as the crowd trickled out, Lily knelt beside Titan in the corridor. Her grip on his fur was tight, grounding. Her mother, Hannah Thompson, crouched next to her, brushing the child's tangled hair from her eyes. "Are you okay, baby?" she whispered. Lily didn't answer, but she didn't need to. Her fingers stayed woven into Titan's coat like he was her anchor in a storm. Standing a few feet away, Agent Cole Marlowe, a grizzled federal investigator with a gut instinct sharpened over decades, watched closely. "That dog just recognized something in that man," he muttered to the judge beside him. "And I'd bet every case I've ever solved that it wasn't the first time they crossed paths." Judge Gibbons gave a slow nod. "Then we need to find out where and when." Before Titan ever growled in that courtroom, before Lily ever gave her silent signal, there was a day that shattered everything she understood about safety, and it started like any other. It was one of those spring afternoons that made you forget bad things could happen. The sun painted golden light across the backyard, and birds chirped above as Lily twirled in her favorite lavender dress, her laughter echoing faintly as she spun between flower beds. Her mother, Hannah, stood by the kitchen sink, watching through the window with a soft smile. Somewhere between debating dinner and wiping crumbs from the counter, her phone rang. It was her sister. Just a quick call, she thought, and she stepped inside to answer it. 4 minutes. That's all it took. When Hannah returned to the yard, the scene didn't register immediately. The garden gate was ajar, swaying slightly in the breeze. Lily wasn't alone. A man was kneeling beside her near the curb. He wore a gray windbreaker and offered a warm smile. Too warm. "I have some puppies in my van," he was saying, his voice smooth like practiced charm. "Special ones. They need a little girl to help care for them. Want to see?" Hannah's blood turned to ice. Her mouth opened before her brain caught up. "Lily!" The man's head snapped toward her, and the smile disappeared. His face shifted, sharper, calculating. In a blink, his hand latched onto Lily's small arm. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She froze. Across the street, an elderly woman named Marla Jennings, retired nurse, local fixture, had just stepped onto her porch with her dog when she saw the commotion. "Hey!" she shouted with surprising force. "Get away from that child!" The grip on Lily's arm faltered for a second, just long enough. Lily yanked free and bolted across the grass. Hannah reached her daughter in 3 strides, scooping her up just as a black van screeched into motion. The tires screamed against the asphalt as the vehicle tore away, vanishing around the corner in seconds. Hannah clutched Lily close, heart pounding, but the girl made no sound. She buried her face in her mother's shoulder, trembling. Not a cry, not a word, just silence. Minutes later, sirens arrived. Flashing lights, officers, tape, questions. Agent Cole Marlowe, with his weathered leather jacket and sharp eyes, took control. He moved with a calm urgency, like someone who'd seen this before. Too many times. He flipped through a small notebook, mumbling, "5th case in 18 months. Always the same. Homes lured by animals, little girls, no witnesses, no survivors." His partner, Agent Renee Tran, approached Lily carefully. "Sweetheart," she said softly, kneeling. "Do you remember what he looked like?" Lily clung to Hannah's sleeve. No nod, no head shake, just stillness. "She hasn't said a word since I picked her up," Hannah whispered. "Not even at home. Not even at night." Tran and Marlowe exchanged a knowing look. "Selective mutism," Tran murmured. "Classic trauma response." But then Marla Jennings stepped forward, firm as ever. "I saw the plate," she said. "At least part of it. Y6R or YGR. I'm sure of that." Marlowe perked up. "We've got something." That night, Lily's silence deepened. No more dancing, no crayons, no appetite. When cars passed outside, she flinched. Her once bright world was now shaped by shadows. Her nights were haunted by dreams she couldn't explain. Shaking, gasping, but never screaming. Hannah and her husband, Mark, tried everything. Her favorite teddy, story time, ice cream. Nothing pierced the silence, until a therapist offered something else. "What she needs," she said, "is not more questions. She needs trust. Consider a therapy dog." Mark was unsure. "What if it doesn't help?" Hannah, exhausted, whispered, "What if it's the only thing that can?" They didn't know it then, but a scarred German shepherd was about to enter their lives and change everything. He was once a hero in uniform, a K-9 officer whose instincts saved lives, until one mission left him scarred, broken, and left behind. But Titan's story wasn't over. He was about to become a lifeline for a girl who had lost her voice. Inside the clean, softly lit rooms of the Willow Creek Animal Therapy Center, a German shepherd lay silently on a large orthopedic bed. His ears twitched at every sound, but his body remained still. Titan was once the pride of the city's police department, a seasoned K-9 who tracked down fugitives, sniffed out danger, and protected his handler without hesitation. But 3 years ago, everything changed. During a late-night raid on a suspected child trafficking hideout, Titan lunged at a suspect moments before the man could attack an officer with a concealed blade. The knife slashed deep into Titan's side, an ugly wound that would heal on the outside, but never quite inside. Though he subdued the attacker, the injury left permanent damage. Limited mobility, pain flare-ups, and a costly recovery led the department to quietly retire him. With limited resources and no placement options, Titan was added to a euthanasia list. That's when Dr. Evelyn Bryce stepped in. Evelyn, a therapist who specialized in animal-assisted trauma recovery, had worked with dozens of therapy dogs. But there was something in Titan's eyes when she met him, an alertness, a fire, a refusal to quit, that convinced her he wasn't done. "He's not broken," she told the board. "He's waiting for someone." Weeks later, Titan was part of her therapy program, slowly regaining strength and trust. But he remained distant, until the day a mother and her daughter walked in. Lily clung to Hannah's leg as if letting go would send her drifting into the void. Her eyes stayed low, her lips pressed tight. She hadn't spoken in over a month. Evelyn crouched gently to meet her gaze. "Hi, Lily. My name's Evelyn. I work with special dogs. Dogs that help kids feel safe again." Lily didn't react. "Would you like to meet one?" She didn't nod. She didn't shake her head. But she didn't run either. Evelyn gestured toward Titan, who sat a few feet away, alert but calm. "This is Titan. He used to be a police dog. He's very brave and very gentle." Hannah whispered, "He's like the ones in your books, sweetheart." The ones that helped the heroes. Still no movement, until Evelyn said, "You don't have to touch him. You don't have to say anything. But if you put your hand out, he might come to you." Minutes passed. Then Lily shifted. Slowly, she peeked from behind her mother. Her small hand, shaking but deliberate, reached forward. Titan didn't move until Evelyn gave the soft cue. "Okay." The dog took one step, then another. His nose twitched as he approached. His head dipped. And finally, his breath touched Lily's palm. Her fingers curled, brushing against his fur. The bond was instant. Hannah gasped, her hand covering her mouth. It was the first time Lily had reached for anything since that awful day. Tears filled her eyes as Titan lowered his body, lying beside the girl as if he'd known her forever. Evelyn smiled gently. "That's a good start, Lily. He likes you." The little girl didn't speak, but she didn't let go either. Over the next few days, Lily and Titan became inseparable. She sat beside him during sessions, tracing the scar on his side like a path back to safety. When the nightmares came, it was Titan's steady heartbeat that soothed her. And while she still hadn't spoken a word, something inside her was shifting. Then one afternoon, Evelyn watched as Lily dropped a treat into Titan's mouth after a simple command. The moment passed quietly until Lily's lips parted. "Good boy," she whispered. Hannah froze. Evelyn's eyes widened. The silence had cracked. One whispered phrase changed everything. It wasn't just the words, it was the return of a voice thought lost. And with it came something stronger. Hope. "Good boy." That soft murmur, barely audible, sent a wave of emotion through the therapy room. Hannah dropped to her knees beside her daughter, tears brimming in her eyes. "Lily, you spoke," she whispered, her voice trembling. But Lily wasn't looking at her. She was staring at Titan, her fingers still tangled in his fur, as if he'd pulled the voice out from where it had been hiding deep inside. Evelyn didn't speak. She didn't move. She knew the moment was delicate, fragile, like spun glass. For children who had been through trauma, even a single word was a sign of monumental trust, and Titan had earned it. From that day on, Lily's progress was steady, not fast, but real. She started with one word a day, then two. Whispered phrases to Titan. Praise, laughter, even giggles. It wasn't long before she began drawing again. Simple pictures at first. Stick figures of herself and Titan, standing together in a garden, always with a looming shadow figure just out of reach. Evelyn never pushed her to explain. The drawing said enough. Eventually, Evelyn introduced hand signals, discreet gestures that allowed Lily to express herself even when her voice faltered. One of them was a specific twitch of the fingers, a sign for, "I'm scared," or "I need help." Titan had been trained to respond instantly. They practiced it every session until it became second nature. Meanwhile, the investigation into Lily's case intensified. Marla Jennings' partial license plate helped narrow the search, and eventually surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showed a black van with the same digits, registered to a man named Simon Drexler. When officers pulled Simon in for questioning, he smiled through the entire interview. Calm, polite, Helpful, too helpful. There must be some mistake, he said. I wasn't anywhere near that neighborhood. I work from home. I barely leave my apartment. He provided an alibi, flimsy but technically unbroken. No DNA, no fingerprints, no confession. And Lily, the only one who could tie him to the scene, still hadn't spoken publicly about him. Yet something about him didn't sit right with Agent Marlowe. He's too controlled, he muttered to Traun. Guys like him don't make sloppy moves unless they're hiding something. The way he smiles, it's rehearsed. The DA was skeptical. We don't have enough to charge him. Then we build from the bottom, Marlowe said. Work the van, track his devices, cross-reference everything. But even as the legal team built a case, the trial date approached with terrifying speed. And unless Lily could testify, even with signals, their chances were razor thin. Evelyn had a thought. What if she didn't have to speak, she asked one afternoon, seated with the prosecution team. What if Titan could help her communicate? If the court permits it, he could sit beside her on the stand. Prosecutor Danielle Reeves hesitated. It's unconventional. It's effective, Evelyn insisted. Lily doesn't need to speak if Titan can respond to her signals. After weeks of psychological evaluations, statements from Evelyn, and behavioral assessments of Titan, the judge finally approved the request. Titan would be allowed to accompany Lily to the courtroom under special conditions. As the trial neared, Lily prepared every day. She practiced sitting on the wooden chair in Evelyn's office, practiced giving the signal, practiced being near strangers. She didn't always speak, but Titan always understood her. And when the courtroom doors finally opened, she walked in, one small step at a time, with Titan by her side. No one expected a therapy dog to shift the course of a criminal trial. But the moment Titan walked into the courtroom beside Lily, every carefully built defense began to tremble. The trial of Simon Drexler had drawn national headlines. He looked the part of an innocent man, well-dressed, articulate, professional, with no criminal history and no physical evidence tying him to the crime. The prosecution's case rested heavily on a traumatized child who hadn't spoken publicly since the incident. Drexler's legal team, confident and composed, believed the lack of direct testimony would carry them straight to acquittal. That belief crumbled the moment Lily Thompson entered the courtroom, hand clenched tightly around Titan's leash. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Whispers rippled through the gallery. Jurors leaned forward. Reporters exchanged glances. Drexler's jaw tightened. For the first time since his arrest, his composure cracked. Judge Harold Gibbons noted it all. His gaze swept the room before settling on the pair. The court recognizes the presence of the certified support animal, he said evenly. We will proceed. Before opening arguments, defense attorney Peter Lang stood abruptly. Your Honor, we again raise concern over the presence of a large German Shepherd in this courtroom. His presence is emotionally provocative and may bias the jury against my client. Prosecutor Danielle Reeves rose just as swiftly. Titan is not here to sway sympathy. He is a medically prescribed support animal. Lily Thompson suffers from trauma-induced selective mutism. Without Titan, she cannot meaningfully participate in these proceedings. The court has all necessary documentation. Judge Gibbons gave no pause. The objection is overruled. The animal will remain. Lang returned to his seat in silence, but Drexler shifted uncomfortably beside him, his eyes darting between Lily and the dog like someone who recognized danger when it stood too close. Witnesses began to testify. Marla Jennings, the elderly neighbor, took the stand first. Her voice quivered but didn't falter. He was kneeling by her, she recalled. He was smiling in this calculated way. But when I shouted, it vanished. Just gone. Replaced with something cold. Her words hung heavy in the air. But they weren't enough on their own. The courtroom grew tense when the moment finally came. Lily was called to the stand. She walked carefully, each step measured. Titan remained perfectly by her side, a steady shadow. Hannah watched, her eyes damp, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Evelyn sat nearby, nodding quietly, willing her forward. Lily climbed into the tall wooden chair. It seemed far too big for her small frame. She didn't look at the jury. She didn't look at Drexler. Her hand found Titan's fur and held it. Reeves approached slowly. "Hi, Lily," she said softly. "You don't have to speak. You can use your hand signal if you feel scared or need a break. Titan's right here. You're safe." Lily didn't respond at first. Then, barely perceptible, she gave a single, tiny nod. What happened next didn't come from the child's mouth, but from her silence, and the dog that understood it better than anyone else. In a room full of doubt, Titan gave them something undeniable: truth. Reeves took a careful step closer. "Lily, do you recognize the man who was in your yard that day?" Lily didn't speak. Her lips didn't part, but her fingers shifted, just slightly, a twitch she had practiced in every therapy session. A movement that meant danger. Titan's reaction was immediate. His ears snapped upright, his entire body tensed, and from deep within his chest came a low, guttural growl. Not loud, not theatrical, but steady, intentional. His amber eyes locked onto Simon Drexler across the courtroom with unwavering focus. His muscles coiled like a spring. The tension in the room snapped like a drawn wire. Every head turned toward the dog. Judge Gibbons leaned forward, watching intently. Lang was already on his feet. "Objection! Your Honor, this is theater. A dog growling isn't evidence." But the judge raised a hand to silence him. "Sit down, Mr. Lang." He turned to the prosecution. "Miss Reeves, has this animal had any prior interaction with the defendant?" Reeves shook her head. "No, Your Honor. Titan has never been in the same room as Mr. Drexler until today." Gibbons' brow furrowed. "Then what we just witnessed may be more significant than any of us realize." Drexler, for the first time, looked rattled. His gaze darted from Titan to Lily, then to the jury. His mask of calm was slipping. He adjusted his collar, his jaw clenched. And then Lily did something no one expected. Without a word, she lifted her hand and pointed, directly at Simon Drexler. The courtroom fell into a heavy silence. Even Titan stopped growling. He remained tense but motionless, his job done. Lang scrambled to recover. "She's been shown pictures of my client repeatedly. Her memory is unreliable and—" "Overruled," Judge Gavin said, his voice like ice. "The jury will assess the reliability of her identification." Reeves continued carefully. "Lily, did this man say anything to you that day?" Lily didn't lift her eyes. Instead, she made the same subtle signal with her hand. Titan's ears perked again, but this time he didn't growl. He just stared. Judge Gibbons turned to the bailiff. "Clear the gallery. I want this next portion in closed session." As people filed out, whispers filled the air. Did the dog just ID him? Is this really happening? What else does that little girl know? Behind closed doors, Reeves showed Lily a photo lineup. 5 faces, including Drexler's. Lily's hand trembled, but she pointed again. Same man, same face. Then she reached down and placed both hands on Titan's neck, burying her face in his fur. Outside the courtroom, Agent Marlowe was already putting the next phase in motion. Drexler's van had been impounded. The soil from the tires had been sent for analysis. If there was a chance he had used that vehicle before, it could hold the evidence they needed. The next morning, the results came back. The dirt clinging to Drexler's tires contained spores and particles found only in a remote forest region near Briar Falls, an area with no reason for him to visit, unless he had something to hide there. While the courtroom buzzed with speculation, a discovery miles away would crack the case wide open. And Titan, the dog with scars and instincts, was about to lead them to a truth more horrifying than anyone imagined. The soil samples from Simon Drexler's van weren't just unusual. They were rare, laced with a mix of decomposed pine needles, clay-heavy sediment, and pollen strains native to only one place, the northern woods near Briar Falls, a secluded area known for abandoned hunting cabins and forgotten trails. Agent Cole Marlowe knew the area well. "No one's had reason to go out there in a year," he muttered, reviewing the map under the dim light of the task force office. "Unless they were trying to disappear." Judge Gibbons granted a 24-hour recess to allow the prosecution to investigate the lead. Lang Drexler's attorney objected bitterly. "There's no evidence my client's ever been near that area." but Given's decision held firm. The connection is plausible. Motion granted. By early afternoon, a small team assembled. Marlowe, Agent Tran, 2 officers, and Titan. Reeves had insisted on bringing him. If Titan recognized Drexler's scent, he might respond to any trace left behind. They arrived at the woods as heavy clouds blanketed the sky. Cold wind filtered through the trees. The cabin, half sunken behind overgrowth, looked forgotten by time. Its porch sagged. The front door was slightly ajar. Titan's demeanor changed the second they crossed the clearing. His ears pointed sharply. His tail rose. A warning rumble vibrated from his chest. "He knows," Marlowe said quietly, unholstering his weapon. "Let's move." Inside, the cabin was sparse. A cot, rusted lantern, empty food cans. Nothing out of place until Tran noticed a scuff mark near the back wall. "There's something here," she said, tapping the floorboards. The sound was off, hollow. They pried it open. A staircase led into darkness. The air shifted, cold, damp, electric. At the bottom, under flickering flashlight beams, they saw it. A small, hidden room. Mold on the walls, a bucket, torn blankets, a corner lined with children's belongings, small shoes, worn books, a pink backpack with a unicorn patch, and chained to the far wall was a girl. She was frail, pale, dirt-smudged. Her arms hugged her knees tightly. But when the light hit her face, she flinched and whimpered, not from fear, but recognition. "Help!" she rasped. "Please!" Marlowe rushed forward, keys jangling as he unlocked the chain. "You're safe now," he whispered, scooping her up. "You're going to be okay." Titan whined, pacing frantically, nudging the child's leg with his nose. She responded instantly, reaching out and clutching his ear with weak fingers. "Emma," Tran whispered, stunned. "Emma Baylor. Missing for 6 months." The nightmare wasn't over, but one more life had been pulled from its grip. By dusk, medics had arrived. Emma was wrapped in blankets, IV fluids running into her arm. Her voice remained hoarse, but she spoke. "The man," he said, "if I made a sound, he'd leave me here forever." She didn't know his name, but when they showed her a photo of Drexler, she pointed without hesitation. "That's him." The rescue of Emma Baylor didn't just bring a girl home, it shattered a defense built on lies. And when the courtroom doors opened again, the monster behind it all realized there was nowhere left to hide. News of the discovery spread fast. The courtroom was buzzing when court resumed the following morning. Journalists filled the benches, whispering to one another. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Was Emma Baylor really alive? And if so, what did that mean for the man sitting at the defense table? Simon Drexler sat stiffly, flanked by his attorney, but he was no longer the calm, unreadable figure he had been. His collar was damp with sweat. His fingers tapped in irregular rhythm on the desk, nervous, unsettled, almost panicked. Judge Givens entered, robes flowing behind him, his face unreadable. "Before we resume the original line of questioning," he said, "the court has received new evidence which will now be entered into the official record." Prosecutor Danielle Reeves stood and addressed the court. "Your Honor, during the recess, federal agents located a property linked to the soil found on the defendant's vehicle. On that property, a missing child was recovered alive. Emma Baylor, age 8, reported missing 6 months ago. Her identification of the defendant was immediate and uncoerced." A stunned silence followed. Lang leapt to his feet. "Objection! This is hearsay. There's been no formal deposition, no verified link." "The child's DNA was recovered from items in the defendant's van," Reeves said sharply, cutting him off. "And Mr. Drexler's fingerprints were found on the chains restraining her. The tire tracks at the scene match his vehicle." Judge Givens banged his gavel once. "Objection overruled. Evidence is admissible." Drexler's face lost what little color it had. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came. His lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently. But even from the gallery, it was obvious. Something had cracked inside the man. And Titan? He sat beside Lily, watching Drexler like a hawk. His ears flicked. His nose twitched. Then without warning, the German Shepherd rose to his feet. He didn't bark, didn't growl. He simply walked, slowly, deliberately, toward the defense table, not breaking eye contact. "Titan," Reeves called softly. "Heel." But Titan didn't respond. He stopped just 5 feet from Drexler, lowered his head and stared. A cold silence settled over the room. Drexler shifted back in his chair, his shoulders rising with every breath. Then suddenly he slammed his palm on the table. "Call him off!" Judge Gibbons' eyes narrowed. "Mr. Drexler, control yourself." "I want him away from me!" Drexler's voice cracked, his facade now completely fractured. "He's just a stupid dog. He doesn't know anything." Reeves tilted her head. "Funny how afraid you are of a dog. Unless you've got something to be afraid of." Lang looked horrified, watching his client unravel in front of the jury. Gibbons turned to Drexler. "You may remain silent, Mr. Drexler. Anything further could be considered self-incriminating." But it was too late. Titan returned to Lily's side, calm again, resting his head on her lap. Lily, still quiet, offered no signal, but her hand stayed wrapped in Titan's fur. That night, behind closed doors, Drexler's attorney met with prosecutors. "My client is considering a change in plea," Lang said quietly, "but he wants assurances." "No deals," Reeves replied coldly. "No bargaining, not for what he did." Lang hesitated. "Then he'll take his chances with the jury." Reeves stood. "Then let them see who he really is." They thought they'd seen everything this case could deliver, until a silent child, a haunted dog, and one last revelation came together to collapse the defense from within. The truth wasn't whispered, it was undeniable. The next morning, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Word had spread Emma Baylor would not be testifying, but her video statement and forensic evidence were to be introduced. Judge Gibbons called the court to order. The room quieted. "Before we proceed with jury deliberation," he announced, "we will hear final statements from both sides." Prosecutor Danielle Reeves stood first. Her voice was firm, steady. "This is not just about one child's terror. It's about a pattern. A man who thought he could hide behind charm, silence, and legal technicalities. But truth has a way of surviving, even if it takes the voice of a dog to carry it." She paused, then continued. "Lily Thompson was never alone. She found her courage, not in the witness box, but in the bond she shares with Titan. And Titan, a retired K-9, didn't just sense fear, he sensed the man behind it." Peter Lang's final defense was thin, clinical. "You cannot convict a man based on a dog's reaction," he insisted. "There is no precedent, no science, only speculation. The girl never spoke. You have no direct testimony." But the jury didn't need direct testimony. They had Emma's rescue, the soil evidence, the fingerprints, the nervous breakdown Drexler barely contained in front of them, and they had Titan. Then came the moment everyone would remember forever. Just before closing arguments were finalized, Judge Gibbons asked Lily to step forward once more, not to testify, but for closure. Lily walked up quietly, her hand never leaving Titan's back. Gibbons leaned down slightly. "Lily, I just want to thank you for being brave. You've helped more than you know." Lily didn't respond, but then, after a pause, she reached up and gently touched the judge's sleeve. She leaned toward Titan and whispered something. Only the dog heard it, but everyone saw the result. Titan turned toward Drexler and let out a deep, long growl that filled the room like thunder. The jury had seen enough. Deliberation took less than 2 hours. When the four-persons stood, the gallery held its breath. "On the count of attempted abduction of a minor, we find the defendant, Simon Drexler, guilty." The courtroom erupted. Lang slumped in his chair. Drexler went pale, trembling as bailiffs approached. His hands shook. His voice cracked. "You don't understand. That dog, he knew." The judge slammed the gavel. "Enough." As Drexler was led away in handcuffs, Titan remained still, his head high, eyes steady. Lily knelt beside him and kissed his nose. She didn't speak to the cameras outside. She didn't need to. Her silence had already said more than words ever could. Later that evening, as Lily sat curled on the couch beside Titan, Hannah watched her daughter and marveled. For the first time in months, Lily asked for a bedtime story. Sometimes justice doesn't speak in words. It speaks in action, in instinct, and in loyalty. And sometimes the hero that turns the tide isn't the loudest voice in the room, but the one who never leaves your side. Simon Drexler was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The evidence, once scattered and uncertain, had formed a wall too solid to tear down. But his conviction wasn't just about DNA, fingerprints, or a van parked too close to danger. It was about a little girl who found the courage to face the man who tried to steal her world, and a scarred German shepherd who stood between them like a guardian from something ancient and unwavering. Titan's name echoed through the courtroom halls for weeks. Newspapers called him the silent witness. News anchors dubbed him the canine guardian. But for Lily, he was simply Titan, her friend, her shield, her voice when she couldn't find her own. After the trial, Lily's world slowly began to bloom again. She returned to her crayons, her laughter, her favorite bedtime stories. She still had bad nights. Shadows still lingered. But Titan was always there, curled at the foot of her bed, a living reminder that she was never alone again. Emma Baylor's recovery was slow but steady. She and Lily eventually met under the soft supervision of their therapists. Two girls, both survivors, both brave in different ways, sat together in the grass one spring afternoon, their hands gently resting on Titan's back. Neither said much, but they didn't have to. The bond between survivors doesn't always need language. Sometimes it just needs presence. Years later, Lily's mother would look back at that moment in court. Not the verdict, not the evidence, but the exact second when Titan stepped forward, unprompted, and stared into the face of the man who thought he was safe behind silence. That was the moment the world shifted. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was truth, delivered on four legs. In the end, Lily found her voice not through pressure, not through interrogation, but through trust. And that trust came wrapped in fur, with quiet eyes and a steady heartbeat. Some stories don't end with applause. They end with peace, with healing, with the soft breath of a child sleeping soundly for the first time in months, and a loyal dog curled beside her, always listening. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to support more real stories of courage, healing, and the unbreakable bonds we often take for granted.